Our team got third overall, and then I was sixth.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is the regular monthly meeting of the board of the Mahakam Seymour Board of Education. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. on Monday, April 15th. I'd like to remind everyone to please sign in if you're a guest. I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones and remind visitors in order to facilitate an effective meeting. If you'd like to make public comments to the board in the public comment time, please read the visitor guidelines out front and complete the public participation form. Get those to Jennifer, and we'll let you speak later in the evening. Right now, we're going to have roll call.
Giles, Raver,
Here.
Hendricks, Casson,
Here.
Larson, here, Park, here, McComb.
Here, at this time, we are privileged to have Olivia Martini with us tonight, and she's going to come up here to the front, and we're going to stand, and Olivia's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Olivia, thank you for being here tonight. And you're welcome to stay, but most of the pledge people tend to leave at this point. Don't know why. All right, board members, you've had a chance to look at the agenda and ask questions. Is there anyone who wants to make any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll give that to Lance because he was loudest. Further discussion on the agenda? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is approved. On the consent agenda, you've had a chance to look at that. That includes bills to be paid, minutes of previous meetings, the treasurer's report, some personnel issues, some record management issues, IESA and IHSA membership renewals, a new fund for the high school activity accounts, and some surplus property disposition. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda for individual discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. That was Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? That was Nazar. Okay, we need a roll call vote.
Park, yes. Casson,
Yes.
Raver,
Yes.
Giles, Hendricks, Larson, yes, McComb.
Yes. And at this time, donations, Dr. Hall.
Thank you. We have 2 donations this month. First one is from BSN, a donation to the junior high, a set of boys basketball uniforms valued at $1,400. And the second donation is from Christie Clinic. The donation is to Lincoln Trail t-shirts with a value of $250 for a total of $1,650 in donations this month.
Those are the donations. A recommendation from our superintendent is that we accept those as presented. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there further discussion on donations? I'll just add that, as always, we appreciate everybody who does that. And we're the recipients of some very nice, generous acts very frequently. We appreciate that. Roll call vote, please.
Hendricks, Park, yes. Casson,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Giles, Raver,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. All right, communication from, anyone here from the PTO? MSEA.
Yes, I have several things. We had a great bash this weekend. They're still getting the.
That's the foundation.
Sorry. She was all excited. I was so excited because there was more money for the schools.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll go to the foundation.
I'm not a member of the union. So.
Laura.
I'm still so excited that we raised over $70,000 this weekend at the Bulldog Bash. So we have the community to thank, and they're still working on that. So that is obviously exciting. I couldn't stay in my chair long enough, but I left early because my son had the ACT on Saturday, so I want to get home. But moving forward, we have a lot of stuff coming. Our end of the year is the busiest because we have Bash. We have hundreds of applications to review for the scholarships that we will be giving out May 23rd, and I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of them. So I'm pleased that our students know that we have these available and that they're applying for them, and what greater thing than to give our students money that we raise, so that's exciting. We'll be doing that on May 23rd, and then that we end our year, we serve the foundation, not the MSCA, serves cake at graduation, and so we'll be doing that as well. So lots going on there.
Perfect. All right. Any questions for Lori on that report?
To defend myself, it says MSEA and it's MSEF, and since I didn't have my glasses on, I didn't see it.
You were just exuberant. That was a good report. Visitors, we've had one visitor that's asked to speak, and that's Lisa Cosimini. Lisa, if you can come on up. And remind you that we've got 5 minutes per visitor, and if you get close, Jennifer will give you one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me come up here. Again, my name is Lisa Cosimini, and I just, in looking over the agenda, I just saw a few things that jumped out at me. And I wanted to thank Dr. Hall for your email on Thursday, the clarification, because I kind of was feeling and looking at the special meeting and stuff that a lot of things were trying to be pushed through really fast before the turnover of the new board members were sworn in. So I just wanted to stand up and just kind of say that I hoped that maybe there's not a rush to judgment, since there is going to be the whole half of the board will be almost half of the board, not 3.5, but 3 people will be different, but I hope things aren't rushed through without the proper consideration. So like I said, thank you for your clarification that things didn't happen on Wednesday. One thing, and I apologize because I didn't come to any curriculum meetings, but I saw the issue about approval of textbooks and update on math curriculum. So I just wanted to bring that up because curriculum was something that was discussed at the school board forum with all 8 of the candidates. And I know the people on the board mentioned that they pretty much trust the professionals' recommendations and just kind of rubber stamp that. So I guess I'm just concerned that I'm hoping there won't be, particularly when it pertains to curriculum, that nothing will be rushed through, while this board is currently in effect. And not to denigrate any of the professionals, but I just, personal experience, I think it was last year, the beginning of 2017, some of you may remember, some of you may not know about this, but there was a disaster in the math curriculum. My son's Algebra 2 class, a new, I don't know if curriculum's the right word, but I guess something was thrust on the teacher without the teacher having any input into it, and the teacher not being happy with it, but having to deal with it. And it was just, I think it might have been a pilot program or something that really wasn't thought out very well, and it was a disaster for them, it was a disaster for the teacher and for the class. So I just want to remind that I hope that the board will be doing due diligence. And like I said, I haven't been following it, but I also was questioning whether or not when the textbooks that are being recommended, when those were available for public perusal or whatever, as I think they are. So I just wanted to bring that. And then the other thing, and I'm almost done, Max. The other thing that jumped out at me was, I think you've already gone through the consent items, and I didn't understand what consent items meant, so I did a little Google and found out that those are just regular business things that people do that doesn't require a lot of discussion. I guess I'm going to recommend that this records management of destroying verbatim records of hearings, that maybe you not do that. When I saw the records from, I think, September 2017, closed session meetings were going to be destroyed, that's what the vote was on tonight. It kind of caught my attention, so I, again, Googled and I found in the Open Meetings Act that 18 months is the very soonest that you can destroy records, so then that's fine. And that records can be destroyed when there's minutes that have been approved by the board and when the board decides it's okay to do that. So I guess I just wanted to go on record as saying that I don't know why records would ever have to be destroyed ever. Because to me, 18 months, maybe look at it and see if it still needs to be closed or if it could be open to the public. But it's not the day and age where we have a verbatim record, it's pages and pages of transcripts, where you have files, cabinets, and rooms full of paper storage. In this digital age, there's no reason to destroy anything, because everything's maintained that way, and if nothing else, for historical purposes. So thank you for hearing me out, and I'm sorry I came so close to that 5 minutes.
Okay,
Max, can I make a comment on that? I was just gonna mention that we, as a board, didn't make decisions on that special meeting based on anything that had to do with being rushed to judgment or rushed to approving anything. We made that decision because it was in the best interest of the district and it was the right thing to do. And in addition to being told that we make rushes to decisions on curriculum, I don't think that this board has ever made a rush to any decision. And we've made a very strict effort to make sure that every decision we made was done with thought and it was never rushed.
this time we'll do reports from board members on the building packets, some comments from board members. We'll start with Lori.
Oh my gosh, it was so full. I think I feel like we do a lot of business at the end of the year. I just was excited about the sports and all the honors that we have going forth, our science, technology, engineering, all those programs where the kids are really getting accelerated. I love reading their names, so that it's not just an organization, so you can put a name with the kid's face. If you did not see the musical, wow, it was amazing. I helped with France for hands, and now I know why I couldn't borrow anything from the high school, because it was all being used for Les Mis, because it was amazing. And I'll just lastly end on hands was so fun. There's been a talk about how long it's been around, but my husband and I have done it 3 times, and we just had so much fun this year. And what I would really like to give a compliment to, because we always often can only hear the negative, is the kids were amazing. We did 5th grade, and they were amazing. My husband made a comment on how well behaved the kids were, so thank you parents, and thank you teachers and administrators. It made me very prideful to have him say that. So that's my summary of a million things we have.
Ms. Arndt?
Well, this is my last address to the public from here. And first I want to thank my wife and kids for, they give up a lot for all of us to come here. Each one of our families do that. So I want to thank them for understanding that this is also important, and sharing the dedication that we go through to do this every other week. I also want to thank my other board members. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you, and I'm going to miss not seeing you. A couple people that aren't here, Cheryl Melkai, I want to thank her publicly. Rick Johnston, he was a very instrumental person for the first couple of years of my term. Lindsay, you've done a wonderful job. Also Jennifer, thank you for all the work you do. You do an incredible job getting us informed on what we need for the meetings. You're very organized with that, and I appreciate that. It's been a privilege to serve on this board. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I thought if I had a chance to do it, I would do a good job at it. And I think that like everything, there's been really easy things to do, and there's been really difficult things to do. And the very difficult things sometimes are more noticeable. And that's kind of just the way it is. I'll miss being here, but I think I can maybe speak for everyone else, but I truly want this board to be a successful board. And I think that if needed, I would be more than happy to do what I need to do to make sure that the board still supports the district, the community, the administrators, the teachers, because that's what the board should be doing. It should be doing that to help facilitate everything. That's it. Thank you.
Lance?
Well, I'll follow suit of Nazar, and just to say a thank you to a lot of people, and interestingly enough, Nazar, first person he thanked is the first person I thought of, which is Cheryl Melkai. When I came on, Cheryl kind of acted as my mentor, kind of took me in her wing, because it's a big job and it's amazing that you don't realize how much you don't know until you get started. And Cheryl took a lot of phone calls from me and helped get me up to speed on a lot of things. So Cheryl, I doubt you're watching, but if you are, can you talk? Thank you.
We'll send her a link.
Okay, very good. As Nazar said, Rick was, again, instrumental with me being brand new. Lindsay, you've been, wonderful as I kind of ramped up the learning curve a little bit, helping out as well. I wish, Merle and Jeremy could be here tonight because I do want to thank all the rest of my board members. It's not always easy. There's difficult decisions. The one thing though that I've always appreciated is that all 6 of you have always, respected my opinions. Even when you didn't agree with them, you respected them, you listened to them, you considered them, and I hope that I showed you, you all the same courtesy with that. I just appreciate the time that I did get to serve. The administrators that are here tonight, all of you have been wonderful. The work that you do is it's amazing. I mean, you guys put in a ton of effort and you really care, and it's noticed. Jennifer, as Nazar said, you do an amazing job of keeping us organized and informed, and we do really appreciate that too. So obviously the teachers, there's a couple of them out here. It doesn't happen without you guys, and obviously the last group would be our parents and kids. Muhammad has an incredible reputation, and it's because we've got incredible people walking through these doors every day, and that really starts with the kids, and they're a product of what their parents are doing at home. And thank you to everybody. Sorry for that. One more time.
You're fine.
Can I just say ditto, ditto, ditto? I guess, it's been quite an honor to serve in the last 4.5 years. I've learned a lot. I don't regret 1 second, the good or the bad. And I wish the incoming board members the best. They've got a learning curve, but I know that they'll do the right thing. And I have to say that there is no wrong if everyone on this board has the children's best interests at their heart. Oh, and you know what? I do need to publicly thank Sophie, because apparently I never thank her. Anyway.
Sophie. Good deal. We'll carry on with some of that in a minute, but I've got a couple things that I want to call everybody's attention. The first is Doug Fisher has someone special to introduce to us.
All right. It is my privilege and honor to introduce to you our 2019 95-pound state champion, the junior high level, Peyton Cox. Mr. Mills and I were kind of joking around with him before the meeting and kind of said, hey, you got a speech prepared, but of course we're not going to put him. Peyton had a great year. He was 40-1. The interesting thing, I've never been to a state wrestling heat before, and actually we had 2 wrestlers competing for a state championship at the same time, so it was really difficult to try to bounce back and forth. So as one was going on, I think Peyton pinned his guy before the other match ended, so it was really cool. Road sign's already up. Photographer's already been in for the picture, so we're going to get that hung in our wall of champions. So if you have time next time you're in the building, I'd love for you to stop by and take a look. But Peyton Cox.
Good job, buddy.
All right, so we've got some special presentations that I'm going to make. And Nazar, you have been a joy to have on the board these last several years. Would you come up front?
Long way home.
You have always done a great job,
Thank you.
and I appreciate that. You've always had the best interest of the district and the kids' heart. You've been very thoughtful. We've talked a lot.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate everything you've done. I appreciate what you stand for. I appreciate you being willing to serve. And I wish you a lot of peace as you leave the board and a lot of success with everything you do down the road. And I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
And I know you've got some family members here. Let's have everybody come
Okay,
up.
thank you.
Have the whole family come. Along with Dr. Hall, because pictures look better when there's more than me in it.
Always look better.
Yeah.
You guys come.
Okay, Jennifer,
Yes.
you're the official. Here. I forgot to give you the official. Official camera. There you go. That's okay. Everybody smile. Everybody smile.
All right, ready? Okay, where's this? Sorry, this is this phone.
Thank you.
Okay. Lance Raver.
He's also known as Lance Ravar, if you didn't know.
Ravar.
Only during swim season.
Only during swim season. They call him the Ravar, Mr.
There you
Ravar.
go. Lance, it's been 3 years,
Yeah.
and they've been good years. And I appreciate you more than I can put into words. You've always been great as far as thinking through things and coming up with decisions. Your work on the finance committee has been so valuable for us, and we need to clone more Lance Ravers in this world. I'm pretty convinced of that. Thank you so much. They went home.
I didn't know we were doing this today.
Okay. I sent them home. You're stuck with Lindsay tonight. It'd be better if they were back.
God gave me luck.
All right. Jenny Parker.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend.
I know. You get a hug. It's been 5 years since we first drafted you into this, and then you ran, and I appreciate you. You've been a steady hand. You've been a steady mind. You've helped us make some pretty good decisions. You've helped us. What a lot of people don't know is that Jenny has been able to help with a lot of the negotiations with our property and issues out here, and that's been great, and we appreciate that, and we will miss you. So on the nights that you would normally be here, I expect extra hugs for Sophie. She is clearly the one on the record that has been traumatized the most by it. But we appreciate you so much. Thank you. I would love to have Sophie in the photo, but evidently that's not happening either. What we do is important. It is not always easy. There's a lot that goes on that for various reasons, because they deal with employees or students or whatever, that people don't really ever grasp a complete understanding of. And the folks that are leaving us tonight have been through some of those issues. and I appreciate the way they conducted themselves. I appreciate the way they represented this board, and you guys have all been great, so thank you so much.
Max, I also appreciate that you are also a lot of times the point person to the comments that are made, and you have broad shoulders for the board, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, I'm sorry. Okay, you guys make it easy. All right. Well, with all that done, now we've got this financial. Trent Nexel.
This happens every other. And one time I followed behind a state track champion, and this time it's a wrestling champion.
Just be glad we didn't really have
fun. We have a lot of
something.
champions. That's more important. So I figured it was good timing to kind of run through evidence-based funding. As we enter the time period where we typically hear about what our tier designation is for next year. So this is kind of a review and update. We haven't talked about it in a few months, but like I said, it's you can never talk about it too much, right? So first, kind of go through the main components of the evidence-based funding model. There's 4 here. The adequacy target. That's essentially it's the total cost of all those research-based elements that make up the evidence-based funding model that would be needed to provide that high-quality education in an ideal environment, ideal class sizes, ideal staffing levels, ideal levels of support for diverse learners, so on and so forth. It's a very complex portion of that of the funding model, and like I said, it results in a very large number. It's that number of the total cost for the kind of pie in the sky, what we're aspiring to, so to speak. Local capacity target. It's essentially each individual district in the state, their access to local property tax revenue. So we'll see this a little bit later, but it's the lesser of the calculated revenue, what the formula believes a school district has access to versus a real revenue. So real revenue is, of course, what you're actually taking in as a public school district in Illinois. In our case, we'll see this later too, but the real revenue is less. So we're not taxing as much as we could, but that's been the stance since 1994. So it's just been more of a philosophy. Base funding minimum. That is it's what replaced the general state aid in previous conversations for the last decades. But moving forward, it's a hold harmless provision that's ensuring school districts never get less than what they got the year before. So for example, next year's BFM, base funding minimum, it's equal to last year, or I guess this current year, base funding minimum plus the tier funding. And that'll make more sense here in a minute too, but again, that never moves backwards, it's always moving forwards. Excuse me. And lastly, the tier distribution. It's kind of the end result of what the formula kicks out on the back end, and it's determined by a district's funding adequacy percentage. Again, it'll make more sense here in a minute. This is more definitions, but we'll know is there's tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tier 1 districts are those most in need of additional funding, and we'll see where we fall in that listing as well. So how do all these components work together? Spent a good amount of time studying the formula, and it's incredibly complex. All the professional organizations for all the administrators spent a lot of time trying to educate folks, and with this I try to take bits and pieces of the different workshops and available information and put it into something that's on one page, easy to understand. So just give me some feedback if it doesn't make sense after explaining here. But starting with the available financial resources, 2 of those previous components on the page before make up those. It's that base funding minimum and the local capacity target, the LCT, but the available local property taxes available to a school district. And then an additional an additional revenue called CPPRT, Corporate Personal Property Replacement Tax. It's a tax that we receive in lieu of a school district being able to tax personal property at the corporate level. It's been around for a little while, but it's a small portion for most school districts. But that's the total available financial resources, that divided by the adequacy target, which again, we identified in the previous slide of that pie in the sky. Here's the total dollars it would take, ideal situation, and so forth. And that would result in the adequacy percent. So that's to say if we have, say, $100 million in available financial resources, and the adequacy target is $100 million, that's 100% adequate. So we wouldn't need any additional state funding, so to speak.
Your dream.
Right, again, talk about a pipe
Dream.
So let's look at our actual numbers. Excuse me, it's about 22.2 million. These are actual numbers from the formula for this year. 22.2 million in available financial resources divided by the total cost of what that adequacy target is, about 33.5 million. So our percentage of adequate funding in Illinois is 66.09%. And that leads into the fourth component, which is the tier distribution. The adequacy percentage it's the deciding factor in that final component. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more on the next slide. So when we talk about what's upcoming here in the next few months, when we hear about our tier designation for next year, that's the additional funding we'll receive on top of the base funding minimum. What does the 66.09% mean for us? Well, like I said before, there are 4 tiers, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the different thresholds are those target ratios at the bottom of that graph. For this current year, the threshold for districts to fall either in tier 1 or tier 2 stops at 66%. We were 66.09% of our adequacy percentage. So in many cases, I mean, we didn't really get any final numbers in this. That could have meant a difference of a couple $100,000. We did receive $228,000, which you see on the next slide. But again, we were right on the cusp. And in terms of looking at the future, I mean, I think we'll continue to be on that fence. I had a good conversation with Superintendent Leroy, Gary Tipsord, who our finance committee met with one time. He's kind of been on the cutting edge of interpreting evidence-based funding in Illinois and going to Springfield and advocating for school districts across the state. And I kind of get the download from him. He said that he suspects, those percentages or the tier designations won't change too much, but if we're right on the fence, we'll continue to be between one or the next. So more news on that. We're hoping that we land into tier 1 to get a few more dollars there. But that threshold, though, is also kind of a moving target for tier 1. It's 66% in the current fiscal year. Last fiscal year it was 64%. So it's all dependent upon the state's appropriation for education funding in Illinois. Next year we're hearing a certain number, but we'll get into that in the next few slides here too. So this current appropriation, I mentioned that it was $350 million additional into the education line items for the state budget. $50 million came off the top that went to Chicago Public Schools. So we'll see if we see that again. But
That's helpful.
That did change the formula slightly.
Hey Trent, just real quick, not that it
Yeah.
matters, but they pull that $50 million for Chicago.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Does Chicago then get to participate in the tier funding of the remaining 300?
It actually is part of that private scholarship fund that helps students go to private schools. And so that was, and I don't know if that's going to be continued under the new administration in Springfield, but that was part of that.
That's what I was wondering. The
$350
county
million.
separate entity.
Passed in the budget deal last year, that $50 million of it.
For the charter schools.
No, not charter,
Private.
private,
Oh,
private, the scholarship
Scholarship kind
fund.
of thing.
Yeah, no, I moved that.
Gotcha.
Trent, I read in News Gazette last weekend that they're wanting to increase teachers' salaries 40,000, or 40,000 would be the base for
A
incoming
minimum.
teachers.
Right, so that would also include TRS though, so most districts are beyond that now. We're beyond that now. When you include TRS, it's another 10% on top of like the base salary, so that's kind of been a common misconception, but still, it will raise
But
the
will it
bottom.
affect our tier at all, based on other school districts that are not?
No, our tier designation is more specific to our, what makes Mahomet Seymour's finances, student demographics, level of staffing, the core instruction. It's incredibly complex. It's hard to go into it, but yeah, I don't see that as being a game changer in terms of the formula itself. It'll increase costs for those school districts that are lower than that, though, of course, and it's tough for them. All right, so if we look at tier designations for this current fiscal year in Champaign and Ford counties, just to show some comparison, Mahomet Seymour falls at, 4th on that list. we're the unit district in Champaign and Ford counties in most need of additional state funding, given our again, all those 26 research-based elements, and I think, and it's as we study that formula, I think it's largely based on, you know, the fact that we're taxing low compared to other Champaign County Ford school districts, or Champaign and Ford County school districts. But again, just to kind of show some comparison data, we've been running pretty lean with the staffing we've had, but you can only do so much with the money you have in front of you. So the formula recognizes that as well, and looking to see additional funds. I think I may have mentioned that this current year, our Tier 2 funding, additional funding on top of the base funding minimum was $228,747. You know, we did not hoard that money and drop it into fund balance. We committed those funds to two of the research-based elements that have the highest return on investment, and that would be additional teachers to reduce class size, kindergarten teacher and a fourth grade teacher, and instructional coaches. So, like I said, it's been explained in all of those workshops, and it makes sense that those positions kind of have the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak. So, of course, that's where we'll put the additional funding first.
Trent, if I can just say one thing.
Please.
And this is just kind of for, I guess, public knowledge. When we met, the Finance Committee, Trent and Lindsay and I met with Gary Tipsword and Leroy, who is probably an expert on this. I mean, he's
on another level.
Yeah. The thing that was most interesting is they use statistical analysis, because the formula is really well done. I mean, surprisingly for Illinois, they got it right. But they use statistical analysis to show what really moves the needle the most on educational outcomes. And, you know, we would all sit here and say class size. I mean, that's what everybody would say. And instructional coaches had the highest statistical significance of all those factors. And that's, to Trent's point, one of the things that we added money to. And it was just interesting, though, you know, you kind of think about, well, you know, class size or whatever makes the most difference, but it was actually a relatively low, statistically a relatively low way to move the needle. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. All right, so when we look into the future, what's next? I mentioned that, I think the last board meeting, the Governor Pritzker proposed in his February budget address $375 million for the tier funding in 1920. So we'll see if that finds its way into the budget, and unfortunately, what portion may go to Chicago. You know, fingers crossed though. But I was going to pass it along to Dr. Hall to discuss some staffing discussions we've had for next year.
Thank you. This fits right in with the evidence-based funding model. So our administrative team actually starts pretty early in the school year, talking about the next school year for staffing. Just keeping an eye on class size, of course, but also looking at the evidence-based model and seeing where we need to fill in the gaps in order to continue our journey toward adequacy. And the whole premise behind the evidence-based funding model is that it's going to take, originally they said somewhere like 12 to 14 years for all, provided that funding is consistently appropriated to the formula, but it's going to take about that length of time to get all school districts into the position where we can say that we're providing an adequate and equitable education for all of our students. The main premise behind the evidence-based funding model was to take away the problem that existed in Illinois for many years, which was that funding has been very inequitable and the quality of your education was largely dependent on the zip code that you lived in. So we've seen some great things with the evidence-based funding model, and we certainly hope that our legislators and our new governor continue to fund it at a level that allows districts to move forward. So our discussions administratively, and those are informed through our principals having discussions with their leaders in their buildings. We feel, and we've already posted this job, we'll be adding a counselor to the high school. There were 3 counselors at our high school up until about, I think, 2010 or so, and through budget cuts, one of those was cut, so we want to add that position back. We feel that we can better serve our high school students there in that area. That is an area that is short. You'll hear later this evening about adding another teacher to Middletown Prairie Elementary to add another rotation to the specials classes. We're excited about that. That addresses some scheduling issues with the master schedule, and perhaps more importantly, also addresses social emotional health with our youngest students. And then we will also, this is not a new position, but we will be moving a social work position from Middletown Prairie to be split between the junior high and the high school. So there's added social work time at our upper levels. We're finding that there's needs with our older students for that social emotional support. We will be replacing all of our open positions that are open due to retirements. I think we have 4 teachers across the district retiring this year, and we're already working on filling those. And then we're also looking at repurposing a current position into a coordinator of student services position. That position will be posted soon. That person will need to have a special education background and will be charged with also overseeing and being a coordinator of our 504 plans in the district, as well as coordinating and overseeing our pre-K program here in this building. We need to bring some kind of all those under one person's responsibility and have a more coordinated approach with those. Moving ahead, we don't yet know what our tier funding is going to be for fiscal year 20. Through the savings that we realize every year from hiring lower cost teachers in place of the folks that are retiring, are able to add the new positions with those savings. And then again, since we don't know what our tier funding is, we'll wait and see what that is, and throughout this, always keeping an eye on where our class sizes are, especially at the K-5 level. At this point, we don't see a need to add any teachers there. We are moving, and we have moved one of the 4th grade teachers up to 5th grade. There's 10 sections currently in 4th grade, and we will need 10 sections in 5th grade for next year. So I can't say that we're finished with hiring, because there's a lot to keep our eye on, and still a lot out there rolling around with budget talks.
Is it 9, 10, 9 at Lincoln Trail? 9 3rd grade,
Yes.
10 4th? Right, presently? Okay.
Anybody have any questions about any of the evidence-based information? It's more than a 50,000 foot view, it's about a 500,000.
Can you just go through each of those 26 items?
We can do that.
No, but can you just one more time quickly clarify that whole Chicago part? Because we can't clarify it yet.
I
Just
still
like
have questions about that.
okay,
Yeah, so there's the appropriation from the state was $350 million, somewhat in the 11th hour, I think. They shaved $50 million off the top of that to dedicate to private school scholarships in Chicago. Is that accurate?
I got that. We teach that in my class. Money does matter in the state,
Sure.
especially years of code. So
So I still wanted to say, how would the formula have played out with that still there? So that's why I hope the 375 stays
50 million more than
stays intact. Sure, yeah, it's a big difference. Lastly, I want to mention too, I'm going to kind of reignite the whole Making Sense of Dollars and Cents newsletter. I know that's what everybody showed up for.
they're on their hands.
I thought about this as long as we was talking. Jared's predecessor equated it to Big Bang Theory and Sheldon Cooper's Fun with Flags video. So let me know.
That really wasn't called for by then.
No,
It's much better than Sheldon.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The next few months, I'm going to focus on that, get some good finance information out there in the community. After all, that's my job, so keep going with that. Thank you very much.
Questions for Trent?
How about a comment?
Honest work.
I happen to teach school policy at the university. I'm not teaching this semester, but I've always had evidence funding be part of my lesson. And does money really matter? And Jared, I need to compliment your colleague here, Trent. That Trent was the first person that any of the people in my department understood the way that he explained it. So I am grateful for that, because it's very hard to get 25 students, and then get the people that you work with to understand it. So thank you.
if they explained anything social work related, it would be way up.
I know, but the other part he did, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, superintendent report, Dr. Hall.
Right, thank you. Well, first of all, with somewhat of a heavy heart, but also happy for him, we want to congratulate Shannon Cheek. Shannon has been named superintendent of the Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond School District. So congratulations. Shannon has been with us for 20 years, 8 years in the high school principal's job, and if you can do 8 years in that job, you can do anything. Appreciate your service to the district, and we'll do some more recognition, but just wanted to congratulate you, Shannon, and let you know that you'll be missed. Also want to thank Angela Ford Barden, the Executive Director at Bridlebrook. She welcomed Middletown Prairie into Bridlebrook as we had an evacuation drill on Friday the 5th, I think it was. Kudos to Mr. Martin and Mr. York, who coordinated that with her. The residents were amazing, and we're just so fortunate to be able to collaborate and do those drills just so that we're prepared. You can't prepare for everything, but you can plan and prepare for some things. Our kids were great, teachers were fantastic, so just thank you to everybody. So the plan was that everybody walked over to Bridlebrook, and then we're bused from Bridlebrook over to the Mahomet United Methodist Church, and we didn't lose anybody, and it all went great. So,
Good job, Ryan.
Tremendous amount of planning and coordinating. I also want to congratulate the cast and crew of Les Mis. It was mind-blowing, just unbelievable. I can't really, am speechless. It was so moving and just awesome. And the support of parents and businesses and other drama clubs that loaned costumes, and just an incredible production. And in the along the lines of fine arts, our bands at both the high school and the junior high were recently recognized with a proclamation from the Illinois State Senate. Thanks to their hard work, we appreciate Chapin Rose recognizing what those kids do and their hard work. And also speaking of Senator Rose, he partnered with Congressman John Shimkus to bring a Google presentation to the junior high called Be Internet Awesome. It was really a fun, interactive thing. Representative Shimkus got involved, and it was really neat to be able to have that. So we appreciate them. Whatever they did to bring it here, it was great. And thanks to Nathan and Doug for coordinating that. And I would just echo the thoughts about Hands Around the World. What an amazing tradition. We had some very special guests with an Irish dancing crew, and then of course Georgie and Samba showing up to surprise everybody and saying some really special things about family, and it was a great day. So good stuff.
We all thought we were cool until they came, and then they were like, forget it.
Questions or comments for Dr. Hall? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go into regular business. And before we start regular business, I know there was a comment earlier about, did we move anything forward or backwards on a timeline to hit the agenda for this meeting based on elections. And I'll just share with you that everything that's on the agenda tonight was items that were slated to be on the agenda tonight, things that were in progress, or things that normally would hit this time of the year. So just so everyone's clear about that. I can understand why there's folks that may have a concern on that, but everything here was stuff that was slated, items that were slated to be here. So, and the first one is a happy item. And it gives me great privilege to introduce Ryan Martin. And the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve Ryan Martin as the new principal of Middletown Prairie Elementary. And is there a motion to do that? Is there a second? Second. Discussion or comments?
I have to say that I think we're very lucky to have Ryan be here. And He's been here, he's great with the kids, he's great with the staff, so I'm really thrilled that he's gonna be the president of Middletown.
I just want to second that. I mean, not to embarrass you, Ryan, but I've heard so many positive comments from parents and staff members that you're going to be a rock star here. I'm just glad to have you here. Congratulations.
Ashley and Hannah, we expect you to go into education and follow along with that.
You gotta follow your mom and dad.
Right?
Well, they know.
Yeah.
School.
And Ashley and Hannah, we apologize to you two right now for any.
I'm feeling kind of old because I was in his parents' kitchen when they were discussing having him do his kindergarten physical. And he seemed to be kind of worried about that. So now he's running the kindergarten.
Thank goodness that's all you remember from him.
I thought you were going to say you can't remember his cavities.
No.
So apparently his physical went fine.
Apparently.
You know, I first got to meet Ryan when he was hired as an assistant basketball coach by somebody else in the room. And real quick, I became on a mission to get Ryan out of Urbana and back to Mahomet where he grew up. And he was not interested in that for a long time. He did a great job at Urbana. I know had good ties there. Felt a real a part of that district. And I had a happy little private celebration when we got Ryan back to Mahomet full time. And we are looking forward to having you lead this building.
Thank you, Max.
Anything else?
Make a motion to approve.
We got a motion and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Casson,
Yes.
Giles, Larson,
Yes.
Raver,
Yes.
Hart. Yes. Hendricks, McComb.
Absolutely, yes. Congratulations. You want to say anything?
See what happens when you go through?
Super quick, I just want to say thank you for all the kind words. I'm feeling the love, I'm feeling the support, getting the confidence, tons to learn. And I've expressed that to everyone. I'm not coming in here acting like I know it all because I don't. I'm going to lean on a lot of good people that we have here and in central office and in the other buildings have extended their support. I'm going to use them extensively. So I'm ready to learn, ready to get after it and figure out how to do this job. So I'm excited. Thank you very much, guys.
All right. Next on the agenda, approval of Chromebooks. Jared Lynn.
So last year we came to you and we purchased Chromebooks through 6th through 12th grade. This year, what we are proposing is grade 6 and then freshman. This was part of the agreement that Trent and I worked out whenever we initially started this program. And Trent's not up here with me because we were going to do Fun with Flags, but anyway. And he backed out of me in the last second. Anyway, so this year we're looking to do something a little bit differently. First of all, prices of Chromebooks have gone up. There is across the board, there's a 20% increase due to tariffs on Chromebooks. So number one, that's a big one. However, we've kind of gotten creative. This year we're proposing that all new Chromebooks for 6th grade and 9th grade come with a 4-year warranty with them. And instead of doing a case with it and a couple different items, we are just doing a 4-year warranty, so there will be no more case. It comes out to about a wash whenever you configure in extras that we no longer have to purchase and no more cases. The Chromebooks actually, the price, it's within $700, correct, Trent? So we've worked some magic. And this will provide us with a lot better solution, mainly because it's an accidental damage protection. So right now we've discovered this year that we've had a lot more broken screens than what we anticipated. We anticipated by putting them in cases that the devices would be protected. We come to find out it's not always the case. We've also had some manufacturer defects that we've had to address with the manufacturer, and we've taken care of that. But again, a lot more troubles than what we anticipated in terms of breakage. With an accidental damage protection plan, it's just covered. So if something happens to the Chromebook, we just send it off, and then a week later we get it back. No deductibles, no questions asked. It's just so again, with the $700 difference, it made a lot of sense. However, there is one thing that we have to remember is moving forward for all Chromebooks that are not purchased this year, we still have to maintain them ourselves. So that was part of our budget anyway, so there's nothing there. This again was budgeted for in my budget for next year, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we ran a 4-year financial model last year at this time. And year 3 or 2, 3, 4, we were going to buy the Chromebooks out.
All right, correct. Yeah, so year 1 we leased the Chromebooks, and this year we will buy them out. Again, part of the budget. Again, just having a $700 difference is phenomenal. Since it is such a large purchase, we do have to come to the board for approval. So, any questions in regards to what we've got going on?
Before we ask questions, let's have a motion on the floor. The superintendent recommends the Board of Ed approve the purchase of Chromebooks as presented. Is there a motion? So moved. Lance, is there a second?
Second.
Now we can have a discussion.
So how many, is the main damage been screens, kids
Yes.
drop them?
Yes.
Out of, what do we have?
We purchased 1,600 last year, and we've probably damaged over 120.
And were those covered under?
No, that is not, well.
Those are damaged or those defective?
Well, I would say half of them are defective. Of that 160 or 120, or half of them are defective, and the other half are broken by students.
So you're talking really the actual breakage less than 5%.
Correct. The problem that we've run into is the manufacturer is claiming that it's not their fault that they're defective.
Sure.
So we've been fighting with them back and forth, and eventually they covered some of them, but we've had to eat a good chunk of those defectives because we sent in probably 15, 20 of them, say, here, look at it, this is the defect that we're seeing. They sent it back to us and said there's nothing wrong with it, even though we have damages to show that it's clearly defective.
But with this, Jared, so with this new warranty, that 4-year warranty you have, there will be no question?
Nope, it literally says in the documentation, just send it in.
Is there a way that we can also get to the parents, the type and model that we're gonna purchase so that if they want to buy their own case, they can?
Absolutely, we will provide that.
And we have some cases.
And so we still have remaining.
Kids don't use it.
Yeah.
Because it's not cool, they all look the
Right,
same.
correct. So we have brand new. We have over 200 cases that are sitting in our office currently right now that we bought, and we'll distribute those for those students who would like them.
Okay.
For the students that currently already have a Chromebook, they're more than happy to use that case.
This isn't so much the approval, but how has it been going? I mean, we had a lot of concerns about how the kids were using these Chromebooks. Are they charging them? Are they being utilized in the classroom effectively? I mean, it would be probably a good time to just maybe talk about, before we buy more of them, to find out, are we using them the way we expected to? And are the kids able to use them the way they were supposed to? Are they keeping them charged?
So from the technology standpoint, it's been really, really well. Instructionally, I'd have to refer to the building principals and Dr. Rummel, but from my perspective, it's gone really, really well.
And have they been using these, are the kids overall using this technology correctly? They're not using it for things they shouldn't be using it for?
I think through the classroom management software, we proceed with them.
So yeah, there are components. Yeah, there are components that we've added for the classroom management piece that from my experience and in discussions with our teachers, they feel like it has been a value added in the classroom. As far as what happens outside of the classroom, I mean, other than what I've heard from people who have contacted me directly, I can't tell you. I just don't have that answer.
Out of 950 kids in the high school, it's pretty minimal in terms of the disruptions, in terms of the inappropriate use. And also it should be noted, as a sidebar, there's quite a few situations where we found out some information that's pretty critical and important to the social emotional health of some of our kids. That's been a pretty, not a ton, but a significant amount.
How are you finding that out?
So, how that is being addressed by, there are tools that are installed on these Chromebooks for monitoring purposes, that we wouldn't have known that this information was happening. To Shannon's point, there's a lot of social emotional things that are going on that are being tracked by a program called GoGuardian, and then additionally a tool called Now Securely. Those tools are providing self-harm reporting, as well as bullying and just inappropriate material that were being executed on personal devices or on other school issued devices that we may not necessarily know that happened. So I would say to Mr. Benedict's, detriment, but it is definitely, I think we've seen from the beginning of the year to now, we've seen a huge reduction in the calls to the office that we've had in terms of kids doing inappropriate things. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Jared, Shannon, and Mr. Benedict, doesn't everybody get an email about their Securely for their kid
Yes,
in the high school?
if you sign up for it.
So, okay.
Correct.
I mean, I get it too, so for 2 kids that I have, so.
Right, so every parent who is registered in Skyward received a notification for Securely. That was something that we had heard from our community members that say, hey, this is great, but what happens?
So you need to sign up for it publicly if you don't know about it.
Yeah, there was an email that was sent out a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that said, hey, we're rolling out Securely. It offers you reporting so that you can see what your student is doing. That was, again, something that the community requested. The GoGuardian solution didn't have that option, so we found other avenues to provide that.
I do that on my kids' phones, so, yeah.
So we've got multiple layers.
It's a big onion at this point. Yeah, there's multiple layers that have helped. Securely 24 is a new one that we just rolled out where there are human eyes, and as I've discussed in the past, there are human eyes that are looking at what's being searched for, what's being browsed in the event that we're looking for bullying and self-harm. And then based off of what that data looks like and our criteria set by our administration, is then we're notified either directly to administration, or if it's severe enough, we will automatically notify the police department if necessary, if it is to that level. But again, all those parameters are set by our administration.
It's also just a good reminder that kids have far more access on their smartphones than the Chromebooks, which are virtually impossible for, we don't monitor obviously private phones, but there's a level of, the Chromebooks aren't perfect, but we do get, administration is alerted when there are inappropriate searches or searches that cause concern for us, and then we can follow up.
When phones are in the building and they're on our network,
they're filtered, but we don't get the same notifications, the same level of notifications.
So
it's a baseline filter.
So in theory, we can't access inappropriate websites, but we don't get
in theory, but just remember
notifications when they try.
Just remember, all they have to do is turn off the Wi-Fi, and they're no longer filtered.
Right. I know.
So there's no perfect solution. We would prefer that they use our device because then we have quite a bit more granular control. Right.
Jared, I know originally we kept some of the old gently used Chromebooks to use for
spares and
swap out spares. How's that?
Those will be phased out in the next 2 years. We assign them primarily to juniors and seniors. Those will be end of life essentially for the district's perspective this year and the next. For all 8th grade devices, so remember we buy a brand new one for 6th graders and we buy a brand new one for 9th graders.
Right.
For the end of this year, 8th graders, those will roll down to Lincoln Trail and to Middletown. So we're not just disposing of those, we're actually reutilizing them throughout the district. So after their third year of life at the junior high, we still get another 1 to 2 to 3 years. Yes, correct. For any device that a senior doesn't want, we then will evaluate it and roll it down as well if it is deemed acceptable and in good working order.
Shannon, your comment earlier, I think, you know, you were talking about how you've been able to kind of maybe get ahead of some situations. Is that because of the reporting software that the GoGuardian is directly? So kids are searching for whatever and you guys are getting notified.
Okay, further questions, comments? Had a motion and a second, some discussion. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Raver,
Yes.
Larson. Yes. Hart. Yes. Hendricks, Cassim,
Yes.
Giles, McComb.
Yes. Next item is Trent Nuxall, approval of contract with Clifton Larson Allen for auditing services.
Alright, so Clifton Larson Allen's contract was actually going to be recommended at the March board meeting, right? So, we had proposed cost, just a 1% increase from previous, from the year before. We tabled that, and I was requested to go back to Clifton Larson Allen, ask for a 2-year extension, the same price. Of course, they were thrilled about that. So, yeah, 2 years at $22,950, and then I figured I had them on the phone, and I was asking to reduce some other costs here too. So,
I like that.
Way to go.
The GATA financial report, I got them down to $1,750. It really helps.
That got it.
Okay. So, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the contract with Clifton Larson Allen as presented. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Thank you
Questions?
for taking that back out and getting that cost savings.
Yeah.
Thank you for thinking about it. She was working concessions at the principal's.
Any further questions, discussion?
Bye.
Roll call vote, please.
Raver,
Yes.
Giles, Hendricks, Cassim,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
McComb.
He was waiting on that.
Yes.
Is that where they staying for the audit agreement?
I guess so.
Yeah. They say
They
for
wanted
a
to see
really
you.
fancy stuff.
Dr. Hall, approval of revised 2018-19 school calendar.
Okay, well, we just need to approve a revised calendar since we did close for 2 days at the end of January for weather-related issues. And I don't want to jinx it, but I don't think we're going to need to do that in the
You
next
realize
5
it
weeks.
did
But yesterday,
snow.
It snowed yesterday.
So, this does result in the last day of student attendance being changed to Tuesday, May 29th, and then the last work day for teachers is Wednesday, May 30th now.
It's over here. Right after Okay. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the revised 2018-19 school calendar as presented. Is there a motion to do that?
Wait a second, I apologize, but I think Tuesday is May 28th, Wednesday is the 29th. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yep.
Tuesday the
And I read
28th.
this because I wrote it in my book.
Tuesday the 28th, Wednesday the 29th. That's what the sheet says.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Move. Thank you. Is there a second?
Okay, but on this it's not.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there other questions or comments?
No, it's just 'cause in this thing it says a different date than the other calendar.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay, so- no, I just, and I write 2 schools down, so sorry.
Calendar is correct.
Thank
So the
you.
one that's up is correct?
Well,
For what's-
the one
So
that's,
the last student attendance day will be Tuesday, May 28th. Last day for teachers, Wednesday, May 29th.
And I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Lance.
Raver, and then Art got the second. And do we really have an option? No, we really don't.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We want to be compliant
We
with
don't
the state
have an
of
option.
Illinois, we're
We
going to
have to
approve this.
comply with the attendance.
Yes, so here we go. Roll call vote, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Hendricks, Giles, Hart,
Yes.
Raver,
Yes.
Cassim,
yes.
McComb.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Romo, math curriculum update.
Yay! All right, so I get started with this. I'm glad to see Tracy here. If I get anything wrong, you tell me in, okay? So we're gonna get started, and actually, I feel like we need to kind of back up just a little bit to talk about some of the processes that are in place and how we kind of got to the conversation that we're gonna have this evening. So last year, we put like a district leadership team, an instructional team together that has teachers from elementary through high school, an administrator representative from each building as part of that team. And we look at curriculum issues that are more global to the district, current research topics. So last year we looked at some research and talked about the choices that we have to make when we implement things in our classroom, the time and energy it takes as compared to the output that you get as a result of that time and energy. So some things can take a lot of time and a lot of energy, but you get a low output from it, versus other things that you can implement that take less energy and less time but get a higher output in regards to student achievement. So that was kind of the big team we put in place last year. And then when we met with teachers at the start of the year last year, one of the reoccurring themes was a desire to get back to vertical teams that would meet and have opportunities for teachers to talk about instructional issues that were specific to a content area. So we laid out a 4-year plan that I believe we shared last year that will be on a 4-year rotation for each content area to meet and talk about curriculum related issues in that content area. So this year was math and science. Next year will be PE, health, and social studies. And then there's 2 more years, and I don't recall the layout for those next 2 years. But by the end of the 4 years, we'll get to all the content areas, and then we'll repeat again with math and science. So each team has a teacher from kindergarten through 8th grade representing their grade level, and then we have 3 teachers from the high school that represent different areas like freshman, sophomore level courses all the way through the AP level courses. We also have a special ed representative from each building on each vertical team, and then an administrator from each building on each vertical team. So the goal is to get strong representation and voices. They go back, they talk to their grade level, and then they come back and bring information to our team. And each team, it's kind of hard to just kind of go out there with instruction and curriculum and say, we're going to talk about curriculum and instruction in the course of a year and kind of cover everything. So we try to set 2 or 3 kind of learning targets or objectives for that team to meet over the course of the year. And so for science this year, we talked about the coverage of standards and textbook adoption. So we'll get to those kind of later in the agenda this evening. And with the math team, we talked about the mathematical practices. So there are 8 mathematical practices, things such as persevering, attending with precision, and talked about what those look like at each level in the classroom, some teacher stems that teachers can use to draw emphasis to those standards. And then we talked about high math in 5th grade. High math in 5th grade is one of the things that parents have requested meetings with me about, and it's one of the conversations that comes up with teachers very, very often. There are a variety of concerns related to the process of high math. Those concerns have ranged from parents feeling like they didn't have a voice in the process or didn't understand the process, to concerns with elementary students skipping an entire year of curriculum. So, before any changes are made, it was important that we as a vertical team understood the research. So our team read a lot of articles, and we were very careful that we focused our attention on peer-reviewed articles with sound research practices written by the leaders in that area. And then we also read some information from the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. To summarize what all that research says, and when it all comes together, is that best practice is delaying the grouping of students for as long as possible. This results in positive outcomes for our lower and middle kind of average achieving students while having no negative impact for high achieving students. When we reached out to the university, their recommendation was very similar to what we read when we read the research. The recommendation was to delay the grouping of students by ability as long as possible, but they did include one caveat when I talked to the university, and that was being careful to recognize the needs of your community. So taking the recommendation to consider our community, we talked about what that needs to look like for us here. We said that we wanted, in the end, we still wanted our students to have access to AP/BC Calculus or Calculus 2 at the high school, meaning that by delaying the ability grouping of students, we did not want to reduce the offerings for our students at the high end. So we looked at, these are some other things that we took into consideration. We looked at the current curriculum. Currently, students that are placed in high math in 5th grade skip the entire year of 5th grade curriculum, jumping straight from 4th grade to 6th grade math. Now, I'm gonna be honest, our teachers do their absolute best to cover this content. Both our 5th grade teachers and our teachers at the junior high, but there are gaps in their content knowledge. 5th grade math includes some very important skills that our students need to solidify to be successful in later math courses. This includes exponents, the addition and subtraction of fractions with unlike denominators, multiplying and dividing of fractions, using brackets and parentheses. There's a lot of things that they need to be successful later on. We discussed the social emotional needs of our students. There's concerns with our group, with kids starting the year in one math class, and then after testing or math scores getting moved to another math class 3 or 4 weeks into the school year. And the other piece that was real important for us was flexibility. Right now, if a student needs to be moved from one level to another level, it can result in the child repeating the entire math curriculum 2 years in a row. Kids that are in the accelerated math or in high math that struggle and may need to go down to the traditional math, they're not unsuccessful at math as a whole, and I think that's not good for their social and emotional needs to be repeating an entire year of math, the exact same math content. And again, when we need to move kids up, they're missing, if we wait until junior high and they blossom in the area of mathematics, they're missing an entire year of instruction, and that was a concern. What we wanted was a pathway that made more sense and was a little bit more flexible while maintaining the high standard of rigor. So, this was the recommendation that came out of, came from the team, and I want to say we probably started with maybe, I don't know, a lot of different possibilities. When we looked at it, we looked at just about any path that you could look at. So with this recommendation, all students in 5th grade would remain with their 5th grade teacher for math. This would look just like it does in 4th and 3rd grade. The classroom teacher will continue to provide instruction that is differentiated. To help teachers with this, we are offering 2 professional development offerings this summer. Targeted elementary math teachers, but open to any teacher, focused specifically on differentiation. Teachers will have time during this professional development to work specifically on their math units in differentiation. So I know that was a concern from parents, and the team wanted to make sure that we were able to address that. So in 5th grade, all students would be placed in traditional math. And then moving ahead, you can see they're in 6th grade if they'll either be placed in 6th grade math, or the accelerated math would be 6th grade math and half a year of 7th grade math. That other half of 7th grade math would be picked up in 7th grade with the 8th grade math, still allowing students to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. The double block of math at the junior high allows the teachers feel that this allows for that time to squeeze in that extra half year of content and curriculum. CPM Math has a compacted curriculum already available and accessible to our teachers. They have at junior high, they have looked over it, and they feel with the double block, this is definitely doable. it's not that kids do 6th grade math for the first 3 quarters of the year and then they do half a year of 7th grade. With the compacted curriculum, the standards are kind of woven together. So if they're, let's say they're doing exponents for 6th grade, they would just tie in whatever standards from 7th grade are aligned with that particular math content. When kids need to move up to an accelerated class or down to the standard class, they'll only be repeating or losing half a year of content.
No more questions, yeah.
Okay. Finally, the other piece, as I mentioned before, that we felt was very important was for students to still have access to Algebra 1 in the 8th grade. I have met...
It's our fire department doing a walkthrough, it's all fine.
Okay. I thought they wanted to come hear about that.
It's just more of our collaboration with our first responders, all good. We're good, no problem.
Oh, we're being invaded from that.
So in addition to communicating, to this recommendation coming from the vertical team, this has been communicated with the district instructional team, who had a lot of questions that kind of helped us hammer out some additional thoughts and considerations. I've met with the 4th grade team, met with the 5th grade team, and I've met with the teachers at the junior high. And this plan is highly supported by the teachers in our district. So I wanted to ask if you had questions about this before I went on to the communication plan.
I just have one, because you answered the one. So if we're having some of those 8th graders, and maybe we could now go into Algebra 1, are we long-term planning better for, will there be a class for those kids, 12th grade?
So the kids that are in Algebra 1 in 8th grade take AP, BC Calculus their senior year.
Okay, so we have that. Okay, perfect.
How is the accelerated curriculum determined when they go into junior high?
You mean how is the placement determined?
Yes.
So I have a letter. We've worked on that extensively for what the criteria will be. So we're going to continue to look at MAP scores. We'll look at what formerly known as PARCC, the IAR scores. We will be looking at, I want to say grades, but it's not so much grades, it's our performance on common assessments that the teachers, that our teachers put together several years ago. In addition, the teachers will be giving kind of I don't want to say a score rating, but we'll be looking at their ability to think mathematically in the classroom, so that will have some weight on that recommendation. So we put together a letter for parents. This kind of gets into the communication piece, but that will identify all the pieces that have gone into the consideration for the recommended placement for students when they get to the junior high.
And when are parents notified of the placement?
So let's go to the communication plan. How's that? So
That's kind of always our problem.
that's okay. So we'll go there, and then if we have more questions, then we can answer that. So when we were talking about the communication plan, we needed to think about what information needs to be communicated to parents and how does that information need to be communicated. So tomorrow I have a letter to go home to the parents in 3rd and 4th grade explaining the change and why the change was made. Additionally, the letter includes a date for a parent meeting that will be held at Lincoln Trail on Tuesday the 23rd at 5:30 in the library. It's the same information that will be presented at that meeting that is in the letter, but this provides parents an opportunity to ask questions or seek clarification. And that's kind of what's going to be communicated right now, the why and what that kind of looks like for 5th grade. But we still have the piece of what happens when they get to 6th grade. And so one of the concerns that we heard from parents was included, I don't know, I feel like I don't understand how my kids were placed, and I wasn't a part of that process, or I didn't understand the process. So before kids leave for the end of 5th grade, we'll be sharing a letter with parents that will explain to them the criteria that's used to make placement. It'll have some scores on there from current kids that are in the accelerated path to kind of give you an idea of this is kind of what students are scoring on standardized tests if they're in the accelerated path, and then your child's scores will be included on there. And then there'll be a recommendation at the bottom of the letter for whether your child's being recommended for the standard sixth grade math or whether your child's being recommended for accelerated math. And then there'll be an opportunity, as always, for you to contact the building principal if you have questions regarding the recommendation for your child. But we felt that it was important that parents have that information at the start of the summer instead of the end of the summer, and that they had all the pieces understanding why that decision was made.
Agree.
So can you back up one slide from that?
Absolutely.
Thanks. So really, K through 4, no change.
No change.
Really, 8th grade on, no change, because we're doing Algebra 1 in 8th grade now.
Correct.
Okay. What we did was, instead of accelerating at 5th grade, we're moving it to 6th grade and doing it, instead of a 1-year acceleration, we're doing it over 2 years so we don't lose contact.
Correct, we're not skipping content.
And
It's good to talk about some
so
students that
you're,
are-
so Dr. Rummel, you've got recommendations and the parent agrees the child's gonna be in the accelerated. They can be stepped back, or can kids be changed within the middle of a year because
Yes.
there's a kid who's not made it to the accelerated, but you see that they're exceeding?
So we do that now. I must say, our junior high teachers, they'll contact me or they'll contact Nathan and they'll say, I've been watching this kid and man, they just blossomed as a math student. Typically we'll get one more round of MAP scores or whatever, and then the teacher usually calls a meeting with the student and the parent and discusses the process for changing classes. And I can say that because we have some pretty large classes at the junior high in both Algebra 1 and in the high math. Our teachers aren't afraid to move kids when they feel like that's in their best interest and they're really excelling in the area. So it's not, it's not 20 kids that are getting moved every year, but we do watch the kids carefully, and if there's a need to move, we do make that recommendation mid-year.
Curriculum is the same curriculum we're using now.
And continue to be
No
CPM.
curriculum
Well, yes, only for the kids in 5th grade.
Right.
That would all be taking 5th grade math, but otherwise we'll be using CPM.
But it's the same 5th grade curriculum.
We'll be using the same CPM license as we currently have, which is using the compacted.
Yeah, we're using compacted CPM for this one group. So, okay. Very good. Any other questions?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
I just want to thank Dr. Rummel and all the teachers and
Yeah.
our administrators too that participated in this, but there's a tremendous amount of time devoted to this, not only in doing the research, but a very thoughtful process, a lot of discussion. We know that 5th grade high math has been around since the beginning of time probably, but
Well, it predated double lock in the junior high
oh, absolutely.
by a lot of years.
So this was just I think with all the information that we had, it makes a ton of sense. It's what's best for kids. But just really want to thank everybody for the time and the input, and voices were heard, people were listened to, and again, the next step is communication plan with parents so that they're fully apprised and we get all their questions answered and listen to their input.
Do you know how long we've done double block at the junior high?
Math,
Well, probably when we adopted
is it
CPM.
5 years?
5 years.
Gosh, it didn't seem like that.
5 years.
Other questions?
I can name the board members over here.
Good job.
Okay. Next is approval of science textbooks. Dr. Nicole Rummel.
All right, I'm ready to go. So, again, this process was completed by our vertical science team. Same representation, K-8, 1 teacher from each grade level, and then 3 teachers from the high school, teaching everything from Bio 1 to AP courses and everything in between. And then a special education representative from each field for a product. And it was very important to the team that the materials were not aligned to NGSS, but were built around the NGSS standards, that they were built around them with the phenomenon at the center, and just focused on what the standards were requiring and asking students to do, instead of taking a current product and just slapping an NGSS alignment on the front of it. So once we identified what we were looking for in a product, we came up with 14 different products to review. The teachers reviewed those 14 products, and through our K-12 discussions, they narrowed it down to 3 products that they were interested in learning more about. And those were Activate Learning, the Inspire by McGraw-Hill, and Discovery Ed. The team liked particularly liked those products because they were K-12 products, meaning they offered a solution from kindergarten through typically either chemistry or physics. But after the presentations from those 3 companies and teaching a couple of lessons, the team came back to me and asked if they could explore the 4th product, which was HMH's Dimensions. That company came in and did a presentation, and teachers sampled lessons from that product, and that product quickly rose to the surface as their top choice. Again, the teachers have taught lessons from HMH product, and we're very happy with all that it has to offer. So with this being an ebook, I'm just going to give you a quick sample as to what it looks like. So one of the things that's really nice with this is that teachers are able to see, so I've got high school biology open right now, but I can click here. These that are labeled like IJK, these are all junior high units. And you can see that we're gonna have bio or science, and then they also have physics and chemistry. So we'll have the same product for 6 through, depending on the order that kids take the class, physics or science in there. So everything is digital with these products. And as you can see, it kind of nice graphics. This is the teacher's edition, so just want to be clear on that. But there's so many pieces that you're able to kind of get into. You can go back and forth between the units, not only the units, but the lessons within the units. For students, there's accessibility features. So everything can be read to the student. There's audio for all of it. You can see here I highlighted. I can pick the color that I highlight in my textbook. I can add notes to those. And then within that, I can view all of the notes within my panel. So if I'm studying for a test, I can pull up all of the notes that I have flagged for that unit. And they'll be right there on the side for studying. So for kids that I know when I go to high school, there are some kids that Post-it note all over the inside of their books. They're gonna be able to do that with their ebook as well. I did check with Pat Bailey at the high school. Special ed teacher teaches math, because remember we did the e-textbooks for the math adoption we did last year. And it just happened to work out with that product that we got the hard books, many of them at almost no cost. And with it being our first really big e-textbook adoption, we weren't sure how that was going to go over with the kids, if they were going to like being on their Chromebooks for their textbook, or if they would prefer to have the hard book. And he said the kids, they use their Chromebook. It's kind of us that feels better when we see them with the hard textbook. Those of us that are a little bit older, but the kids prefer and do just fine with the textbook. I have ordered just a few, or will order. I just have quotes right now, and within those quotes have included just a few hard books for students that may need that as part of an accommodation. But otherwise, we will be going all online for those.
So what grade levels was this?
This is sixth grade through 8th grade, and then your 4 first level courses at the high school. So physics, chemistry, or science and bio.
How often are these updated?
So these are updated live. So if you find, if a teacher finds an error in them, so just like with the algebra and geometry books, if there's an error and they contact them, they'll fix that, and then the teacher will get a notification that it's been updated.
Wow.
So as opposed to having a textbook that's 7 years old, you don't have 7 years
Correct.
of incorrect information.
Correct. And this would be an 8-year adoption. Remember, we're trying to get everything on the cycle for those vertical teams. And when I talked to the teachers for the science committee, they did not want to go through this process again in 4 years. So we'll be looking at, we were able to get an 8-year ebook subscription for this. As we were reviewing materials though, we had the discussion of K-5. And science at the elementary level is typically taught 2 or 3 days a week, or it's taught in alternating units. So a science unit, social studies unit, science unit, social studies unit. And without daily instructional time focused on science, there was not enough time for the teachers to get through the HMH curriculum. So some teachers at Lincoln Trail piloted what we call a supplemental curriculum, which is mystery science. And we will be looking to do an 8-year subscription to this supplemental service. So our teachers wrote units several years ago, and probably not several years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that were built around phenomenon and really created with the heart of the NGSS standards. This just provides another piece, another layer for them. It's got videos embedded in it. It has assessments. Some of the assessments are multiple choice, but a lot of them require scientific thinking. And when the vertical team was meeting, that's what the high school teachers were saying. They're like, it's not the content we need the kids coming up with, it is the ability to think like a scientist. And so we talked a lot about that. You'll see that there are a lot of units here, and we went through as a team and talked about, okay, if let's say 5th grade can't get through all of these units, because there's 4 units here, and then they have the RUB unit that they do. And we don't want to get rid of that. That's just huge as long as we're able to do it. Kids love it, the teachers love it, it involves the community and parents. And so Sandy said, okay, so what do you need, junior high teachers, high school teachers? What units would you say if we don't give up anything, what do you want to make sure we cover? And so junior high said, our kids don't come up with enough chemistry. So please, 5th grade, do the chemical magic unit. Keep the chemistry unit for us. That's more important. And then we talked about some other units that maybe are covered strongly. Some of that content is covered maybe in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, and kids come up solid enough in that going to junior high. So that was a real nice piece with the vertical team, is being able to say, okay, just get these elementary kids thinking about science, asking questions, and then we can talk more about the content as they move up. So the last piece then, we had some AP and AP classes that needed new textbooks. So AP, the Campbell biology book, almost everybody uses Campbell. I mean, I know at AP Bio is taught by Campbell, like everybody uses the Campbell book. And then the Holes book, again, is one that's very commonly used for A&P classes, especially because it has a high school specific edition. And teachers tend to really like that one. And then the AP chemistry book is the same one that they use at U of I. Not the AP edition, but the same college edition there. Those 3 for those 3 textbooks, they brought them to the science vertical team, shared them with the team. All of these books went to the district instructional team, district leadership team to look at. But the actual review of the AP textbooks and the A&P books were done at the science department. I don't know that the rest of us would have had much input on what we were looking for in those courses, for those textbooks. So all the textbooks are here. Contacted the library. So we've made our sign. We got a little sign-in sheet for parents to sign in after if they choose to review the materials, but those will be on display at the public library. Questions?
When will they go on display and how long?
I need to reach back out. I think they're ready for us, but I would say probably Monday at the latest.
And then how long will they be there?
30 days. And so I will say for the online books, in case there's any questions, we do have like the hard copy teacher edition. So I don't want people to be concerned that there's ebooks and then they don't have access to them. So the only ones that you have Unit 1, these are still being published. So the whole material is not available, but we do have a unit to provide for parents to review. And then this is the junior high materials there.
So the books being on display, that will go out to the parents and parents will know that they can
I
go
think
to?
we usually put it in the board minutes, so we can try it, that's what we talked about, but we can.
Well, but not all parents read the board minutes. So if it's only 30 days window that parents can view those, I mean, I think that information needs to get pushed out to
Post
the
it through
parents.
Skyward.
Can do that. I'll work with Nathan and Shannon and we can send that out to parents and get ready.
So we'll be back for approval on that next month.
Are you ready for the last one then? So the last book that we have is also going, I have a hard copy here, but it will be an ebook. This is the textbook for the new discrete math class. So this is the new class at the high school, and we needed a textbook for that. Math, the high school math department selected this textbook. It's used by a lot of the schools in the suburbs that offer the discrete math class. So we wanted a textbook that was intended for high school students. So this was the textbook that they selected.
That's previous, we approved that, Eric Potter presented with you, is that right, everyone know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
That
yeah,
was-
What was presented with the physics class.
physics class, right, okay.
Is that an ebook also, or is that?
The physics book?
No.
This one is an ebook, the math book. Yeah, the only reason, if we go back, the only reason the AP and the Holes books are not digital is because those textbook companies do not offer an 8-year subscription. So we do like 4 and 4, or we do 6 and 2, which wouldn't be a big deal, except that subscription is very expensive compared to like the subscription costs that we're getting with HMH. And I'm able to buy all 3 of those books through a third-party vendor for about $50 less per textbook than I can get them from the publisher. So it is a huge cost savings. Unfortunately, those are pretty hefty books, just heavy, big books, but cost-wise, it just doesn't, it's just a situation where it doesn't make sense to purchase the ebook.
Trent, is that okay with you? Works.
$50 less per book about it.
So,
Okay,
all right.
all right, so we'll be back next month with both of those. That takes us to item number 8, approve 5th special at Middletown Prairie. Mr. Martin.
Kind of a deal, tell him.
I forget how many of those.
All right, well, first of all, I want to thank 2 first grade teachers for volunteering to come help me present tonight. We have Melissa White and we have Tracy Ward, both first grade teachers here at Middletown Prairie. You heard a little bit about this special earlier in the meeting. I just want to kind of go over the process of how this came about. Earlier in the year, we had an admin meeting, which also went over that evidence-based funding that Dr. Hall and Trent were talking about earlier tonight. And with that, we got to have, admin had come up with a wish list of what an ideal situation, put out there what it is that you would like. And through that process, Dr. Hall communicated to us that we are going to look at receiving a 5th special. So that really got my mind thinking, okay, fantastic. What's this gonna look like? So the process from there is I came up with an idea through collaboration with a lot of individuals first, bouncing my ideas off. A lot of the admin in the room helped me with this, get the ball rolling with this. We have a Middletown Prairie leadership team, a leadership committee that meets once a month. I brought this idea up to them, wanted to see what their feedback was, and then once I got their feedback, kind of get a game plan of how are we going to put this together and make it best fit what our needs are at Middletown Prairie. So through their help, I presented a slideshow that I'm about to show you to our staff, and I've received a lot of positive feedback from everyone involved, from people outside of Middletown Prairie to the people here. So first of all, I want to answer the question, why is there a need for a 5th special here at Middletown Prairie? We adopted a master schedule this year, and we've also came to a new building, and it took us a while to kind of live in our space to realize what needs to change for next year. I'm very aware of a lot of things that need to be adjusted. And one of that is allowing some more time for transitions built into our schedule. And what I mean by that is we have some back-to-back encore classes, which are the other specials we have, that there's a lot of instruction time being missed. There's a lot of time being missed from moving from one place to another that we need to address. And also something that I really want to look at is implementing a morning meeting through our responsive classroom. That is a big focus for our professional development next year. I want that to be a whole school-wide implement with the morning meeting, but I also really want that to be in the morning. I think that's a very important part. This will help allow us to schedule that. I've been in teaching roles where I've had to go to a special as soon as the kids get there and they got breakfast and you're having a morning meeting later in the day. It's just not as effective in my opinion. So I'd love to have that start to the day and also allow for a closing circle at the end of the day, which would help with this fifth special. No student would have to have encore at the very end of the day to allow for this closing circle, but also our routines will be smoother and safer. What I mean by that is, currently we have learned something to change for next year. We don't want to put kindergarten at the end of the day at our specials. It's a little legs going really far to go to one place for bus, one place for drop off, kids club. It's just got to a point where we realize, okay, we need to change that, and this would help us relieve some of that in our schedule. Plus, it sets up for future expansion. I'm sure you can see a look around. Our town's growing. Right before my eyes, out my window every day, I see these buildings being put up. So it allows for future expansion and for our master schedule to put in what we really want to do here at Middletown Prairie. I'm going to pass it over to Tracy, who came up with this awesome image.
Okay, so Alyssa and I both serve on the leadership team at Middletown Prairie. So when Ryan came to us with this idea, I was pretty excited, so I started Google searching for images that would kind of match the thought process our team was going through. Every time Ryan talks about it, he always says whole body health and wellness, and when we thought about that as pre-K to second grade teachers, what does that really mean for a young child? Thinking about that, we said we really want to hit the body, the mind, and the social skills that they're going to need to be successful here at Middletown Prairie. And we want that to encompass everything as like a whole body health for them. So this you can kind of think of as us triangulating all the skills we think the kids will get from this class.
Something else we worked on as a leadership team was just almost a job description, because this will have to go out and we will be hiring this position. So we as a team talked about what we hope to see in this person and in this class. So again, addressing the whole body, we've talked about how important movement is in this class, and just the need to address early childhood and the stages of development of our students here at Middletown. So we address the youngest kids in this district, and that's really important. So we want to make sure that the person hired for this position has worked with a similar age group. So again, triangulating those three things, and you can see a list of possible topics. We also want this person to be highly collaborative with the staff members here at Middletown. So we would give feedback about some needs we're seeing with our students too.
That's what I mean. Okay. I've done a lot since this morning. All right. Why whole body health and wellness? So my brain was really just turning, trying to figure out the perfect fit for what we needed. And it started with looking at where our gaps are going to be. And mentioned earlier, Nancy Cosner is retiring, who is a social worker in this building. That position is being retained but not here. It's going up to the junior high and to the high school, where I think there is a very high need. And it's well needed up there, but it feels we have a gap here. So I think this is going to help us fill some of those gaps when talking about social emotional lessons. Currently, we have two, Julie Ditmars and Nancy Cosner, that go in once every 2 weeks to classrooms to do an SEL lesson. So that was something I don't want to lose, and this would be help to fill that gap. There's a growing need for all students with social emotional learning, and it starts here with our very youngest learners. And we want to address that through these lessons and give these kids some more tools from the toolbox for them to use as they move on to the next phases of their educational career. I really also was looking at, I want more movement in the students' days. These kids gotta move. They gotta get those brains going by getting movement out and get it going. So I want that to be a big focus on this class. With that could be, there's cooperative games I really would like for them to work on and work together and learn how to play some of these games. And also we have another issue that we're trying to address is just, the playground and being able to play with one another and keep your hands not on everyone and pushing and shoving. And we want to try to teach, it's not gonna fix everything, but we want to try to teach some cooperative games that can be carried over to the playground. And I would love to see this person along with the classroom teacher learn these games and interact with these kids. I think that's also a big part of our responsive classroom professional development I'm anxious to learn more about, but it's really building that culture and investing in the kids and being part of them in your classroom and outside the classroom. Some things that can also tie in, we have school nurse lessons. I think that you can push in the vision and hearing that the school nurse does. She does a hand washing lesson. I think this just helps with one less disruption in our teacher's schedule. At the elementary, there's a lot of things that pop up. This would just help with one less distraction. We've talked about Aaron's Law could also be pushed in at this, and I need to look at how that's going to play out. But to ask Julie Dittmar to be the only social worker here to go through all the pre-K and through the K through 2, that'd be around 37 classrooms. That would take almost a month to get through. So I think if we can work together and come up with a plan, we can collaborate to make that a more manageable lesson. Plus, we want to build it with someone that the kids trust, and it's a very sensitive topic. We don't want, that to all be on Julie's responsibility. And this is probably one of my biggest parts that I'm excited about. Is I want this to tie into classrooms, teachers' morning meeting. We were talking earlier about how this person that we hire has to be very collaborative and communicate well. I don't want this to be something that the teachers say, oh, they get the SEL in this special, so I don't have to do it. I want this to be a person that says, okay, my theme for the week is self-regulation. These are some of the tips we're going to be talking about. In your morning meeting, I want you to really talk about this, expand it, do some activities, and so that the whole school is really going through similar conversations and really look for a way to kind of rally behind one another and have a genuine whole school working together on some of these SEL lessons. So the question is, great, how are we going to do all this? What are we going to use? And that's really going to be something that's going to continue to grow once this person that we hire needs to be excited about designing curriculum. We have a very similar class this year through ADL that Jana Raver has done a great job designing the curriculum and really starting with something very minimal and growing it, and it's continued to grow as she gets into it. She's doing amazing things. That's what this person would have to do. However, we do have some resources that can be used as a baseline. Second Step is a program that we currently own. I've taught the newer version as well in Urbana that is a little more engaging than the older version that just has a card and a story that goes along with it. So that's something that we could look into. There's a Mind Up curriculum that some teachers use here that really focuses on how the brain works, and it's pretty awesome to hear kindergartners talking about the different parts of the brain and really be able to say, I'm up here in my brain, I need to flip down to this part of my brain. It's pretty awesome. Let's see. Playworks is something that Coletta Kronick has brought to me. She was very interested in helping solve some of our issues on the playground. Playworks is it's a very expensive PD that can come in. It's not something that we're ready to do now, but however, there are some resources from them that includes 200 games for social emotional learning that I think this teacher could use some of those games to help with that carry over to the playground. Zones of regulation is something that our social workers use currently, and our OT and that work together, so there's a lot of vocabulary that can be used. Also, emotional literacy. There's a lot of books that the social workers can share with this teacher on how to kind of use that as a springboard in system lessons. And that last one, where your feelings come from, how the brain works, that's an extension of the Mind Up curriculum. So that's where we are, that's what we're presenting, and I'm pretty excited at all the positive feedback I've got on this, so ready for any questions.
I'm super excited. I mean, you knew I would be, but I'm super excited that I didn't hold it back, and I'm very unbiased, but I mean that we're taking a learning standard that affects every single kid in the district. All kids, no matter what their economic status is, have these social and emotional issues, and we're looking at them. And I think it's really awesome to start it from very young, and hope that that can be a continuum that we can pass across our buildings. I think we'll see the outcomes at the end.
I think Lori's right. The social emotional is great, and I think you're smart to tie in the physical activity because we saw a year or so ago how the kids getting up, moving around, that makes a difference. So doing both of those at the same time makes sense.
I like the fact that even though we're losing one person here that works in this area, this is something that will touch every child in the building every week. I think that's just great. I certainly understand the scheduling need for a fifth item in the rotation. This sounds like a great program. I liked it. Lori likes it, so that tells me I'm on the right track. I would be remiss if I did not ask. We've got 4 now. Was there any thought to doubling up on something like PE? Because I know a young man who thinks we need to do far more PE at this grade level than what we do.
Yeah, that was definitely discussed. I had that conversation with several other people, and it could have been a real possibility that I'm up here trying to push that, but I just really looked at what our gaps and our needs are, and I do think movement is something that needs, so I agree with that, but I think...
It sounds like there will be some movement.
100%, yeah, there's gonna be...
And there is an ABL too. I tried to explain that to said young man, but I may need you to explain it to him. He listens to you.
Yeah, sometimes.
I have a question. It might be one that maybe Christine and you can answer together. And just, I still love it. We're not going to miss identifying any of those children that are early childhood or have, needs with IEPs by not having that person for social work to do the mandated. Okay.
No. I mean those kids, that's a child find issue, and we're required to do that anyway. What I would like to think is that this is a piece of those tiered interventions that we have that are available to all kids and that we're providing to every student across the board, and that for some of those kids it will address their needs that aren't able to be met by everything that's going on in the classroom already, and not require social work, but just some things that maybe skills that are lagging that can be taught and learned and then utilized moving forward in social work and everybody in mediation.
Great. I like that too.
What kind of teacher do you expect to teach this? I know it says a licensed.
Great
licensed
question, and I've
position.
had that exact conversation with the leadership team, with a lot of other people as well, and Nazar, what it boils down to is we want the right person. And I know that's kind of like, well, what does that mean? We talked about, do we advertise it as a PE teacher originally? Do we advertise it with a PE teacher with a health endorsement? Do we advertise as a social worker? And I think we need to advertise it as a licensed teacher with preferred experience at the early childhood level. That exact same thing is, and I think we said we just want a great teacher who has a huge passion for social emotional learning and has shown that they have a good track record of working with this age of children that can really design a curriculum, and there's a lot to this. This is going to be a big hire. It's got to be the right person.
And who would be involved in the recognizing and hiring? Is that you guys as the committee and?
Yeah, so I would put together, similar to what I've done in the past, I'd reach out to who is interested in being on the committee, and I would try to get a good representation of what we have here at Middletown Prairie. I would want to make sure, definitely want a social worker involved. I would want representations from the different classrooms, and I'd look at some of the specialist teachers because they'd be working very tightly together as their team.
What's the time frame for posting it? I know we have to prove
we
it
get
first,
approved,
right?
let's go.
Tomorrow.
If we assume we approve this time. Okay. Other questions? Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the 5th special of Middletown Prairie as presented. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Lori Larson, is there a second?
Second.
That would be Jenny Park. Discussion, we've kind of jumped the gun on that, we do that sometimes. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, Jennifer?
Casson,
Yes.
Giles, Larson.
Yes.
Rayber,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Hendricks, McComb.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing this in action. E-rate update, Jared.
Very quickly. I think we've discussed this privately, but I want to publicly state that the state of Illinois did approve our funding request for our fiber project to connect Middletown Prairie to the high school.
Wow.
We are still awaiting federal approval. Don't know when that's going to be. I can have approval tomorrow. I will not know until they either.
Will they approve it before the okay for the rate runs out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to have it in by July.
Okay.
So they have to have it in, but I don't know when that date is, right? Like it could be tomorrow, it could be in a month, and you never know until you get the letter that says you're approved. If there's no indication other if that year, I looked on the website tonight, it says we're in review. That basically somebody's looking at it in Washington. But that was, the state of Illinois did approve a almost $50,000 part of that project. The only stipulation to that is that we have to get federal funding in order for the state to kick in their 50 grand. Again, that project, total cost of that project is $160,000, of which if the federal government approves, we pay absolutely nothing. So.
Didn't you say that our monthly access fees will go down?
Yes, right now they're $1,800 a month just for this building. Those will go down to $300 per month, just for maintenance. In the event that something big happens, like it's cut in the ground or any locating services via Julie, just general maintenance.
Once we get approval, how long does it take to pull the trigger on the project?
I can pull the trigger, it has to be 100% done in the ground by July 1, 2020. So we'll be moving pretty quickly.
How long will it take to do it?
I was told that it would take probably a couple months to complete.
Is this something we prefer to do over the summer?
It doesn't make a difference. There will be no disruptions.
Okay.
Probably best to be done before the ground refreezes again in the winter. So as soon as we get approval from the federal government, we'll start moving to get on board with the village in terms of notifying them and asking them for approvals for different components. But it's just coordination with the village.
So it's not an if, it's just a when.
You said before the federal government always approves this.
This is true. The federal government typically approves category 1s just because and this is a category 1 project. The federal government typically just approves it. It's usually a rubber stamp. They are more, this is considered what they call a special construction. They are more stringent in their approval processes, but if you provide good documentation and good data to back it up, it's pretty much a go. We're just, again, we're in a holding pattern, and there is let's say something happens and the government doesn't approve, there is an appeal process that we can go through. Again, there's a deadline for that, and it has to be done within the next couple months. So everything should go well, fingers crossed. We have a really good consultant working with us to back it up, and been really, really happy with that consultant, correct? Absolutely.
Well, that's good news and good job on this.
Just want to let you know, I have nothing else in regard to that.
Very good. Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Closed session is necessary tonight for 1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of the specific employees of the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee to determine its validity, and 2, litigation or action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body if it's filed and is pending before court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for finding should be recorded in the minutes of the closed meeting. Is there a motion to go into closed session tonight for those 2 reasons?
So.
Thank you, Dr. Casson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lance Raver. On your roll call vote, please.
Rayber,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Hart. Yes. Hendricks. Casson.
Yes.
Giles. McComb.
Yes, this time we'll go into closed session. I do not anticipate any business when we come out of closed session. We'll adjourn for 10 minutes to clear the room.